Hello friends! Today we're going to be talking about game design, game jams. It's going to be a good time. I also just got back from vacation. And this is going to be my first stream back live again. There we go. And I want to talk about some of the dangers of game design. Because I was out hiking. And while I was hiking, I just started thinking about, I wonder what my stats would be while hiking. Well, maybe I don't have the highest endurance, but I have good endurance recovery. I just started, processing what my stat line would look like as a hiker. And I like cleaning up on the trails, so picking up trash, maybe that recovers morale. Wait, morale's a stat? Yeah, sure, let's make morale a stat. So, that'll recover morale, or knocking over those hiker cairns. Sometimes you see hikers who have dropped a bunch of rocks on the trail. That's actually not really good for the wildlife, and I like to knock those over. And maybe those would be collectibles. Finding random, piles of rocks, that's a great collectible marker. And just started thinking about just mind going various places, mind wandering, because it's kind of a meditative hiking, I started thinking, wait a minute, what do I have for a special ability? Maybe I'm faster when traveling off-road? Or something of that style? Well. Oh, maybe I can recover morale from breaking those hiker cairns. Wait, weren't those collectibles? No, that was a couple revisions ago. Those are now morale buffs if I collect them. Yeah, that's how it works. And just filling my mind with all this fun stuff. Well, maybe another hiker type would build cairns, and that would give them a morale boost, as a way of leaving their mark on the trail. So for those people, they would sit and recover stamina while recovering their morale as well by building cairns. Well, sure, that makes sense. Why not? My mind just kept on going and thinking about other people who I know who I've hiked with before, and saying to myself, what would they be like? Well, I have a friend who's very light on her feet. Maybe they don't disrupt any loose stones unless they're above us, the stones are below a certain weight threshold. That would make sense, sort of like a phase step sort of ability. Wait a minute. Would that become too weak if they stay on the trails, though? Maybe it would be too strong if, they can just run across scree without disrupting any of the stones. So here I am, in the middle of one of the most beautiful parks in North America, walking around, thinking about all this stuff about a game that doesn't exist, that has no models, no scripts, no engine, no assets at all. And my dumb lizard brain is going, wow, I really need to playtest these balance changes when I get back. That's the kind of stuff that game design can do to your brain, friends. Just, that was my hiking, and did it make sense? No, not a bit. But it was fun. And, and on that, today we are talking about game design. And yes, I need more points in endurance, obviously. Everyone does. Everyone needs more points in endurance. If you haven't been outside, I can't blame you, honestly. It's scary out there. But, go touch grass sometimes. So, we have a game jam coming up. The Go Godot Game Jam. Now, I'm not terribly familiar with the Godot engine. I've been playing a lot of games in it recently. You'll notice that on the streams. This past week we played Hive Time and Primal Light. And over the course of the next couple of weeks, I'm going to be playing more games in Godot. Basically to highlight it, to help present it. And also one of my ways of helping with the game jam is going to be going through that. And we actually have one of the leaders, one of the organizers of the game jam, Redefined Game Dev, in our chat right now, and everyone should say hi to them. Shower and hiking is a great way to get the gears in the head moving. Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially when you're so far away from the world that you can just relax and not think for a while. Sometimes you need to not be thinking to get your best thoughts. I guess the better way to phrase that would be you need to unclutter your head to get your best thoughts. So, a game jam, for those of you who aren't familiar with it. What did I actually... Oh, I didn't set my latency. Hold on. Oh, I can't change that live. Okay, we're going to have about a 15-second delay between chat and me seeing chat, just so you know. I do want to talk with you guys, but we are going to have a little short delay between me seeing chat. Hello. So. For game jams, the idea is this. You have given a objective, if you will. You're given a design prompt. What that prompt is will change every single game jam, and that is not known until the jam officially starts. So you have to sign up and say, yeah, I'm going to be here for making a game. I'm down for this. And then you learn about what the game has to be about. Sometimes it's simplicity, sometimes it's anger, sometimes it's peace. It's whatever the host feels like making it about. And it's basically there to make sure that you haven't been thinking about a game in the back of your mind for the past 16 months and saying, oh, yes, I'll just submit this. Or make a new game out of scratch and say, yes, this is my game jam game that I totally just made this past month that I haven't been working on for the past year. So if the theme is mountains, then, you know, unless your game that you've been working on is a mountain game, you're pretty unlikely for it to apply. And then you have a set amount of time to make the game. This varies a lot from game jam to game jam. Some of them are 72 hours, and I could totally segue and talk about how some of the shorter weekend game jams end up glorifying the concept of crunch time in the game industry, but I don't really want to get into that right now, so just pretend that I said a lot of words about that and that they were very poignant, okay? Yeah, okay, we can move that side on. Yeah. This one is going to be a month, unless I'm mistaken. It's going to be about a month-long game jam. I think it goes from the 6th to the 9th of June. And which I think is a very healthy amount, especially for an engine that a lot of people are going to be picking up. Hello, Tawheed. Hello, Raging Shark and Rated Dog. Good to have all of you here. So I think that month-long game jams are honestly the best time frame because it opens the door to a lot of people who wouldn't be able to make a crunch game jam. If you have a game jam that's going to be only 72 hours, it can be a real test of skill. It can be an excellent time. It can be an absolute brutal trial of your ability and teamwork with your team. But it also really limits the number of people who can enter. If anybody has any disabilities or any concerns about production that would get in the way that they can't account for, then, well, they can join a month-long one and still be able to weave in. If you're working a full-time job, or two if you're in America, you can still have some time to weave in a couple of concepts or ideas for the game jam. It gives a lot more flexibility to everybody involved. You know what I'm saying? And that sort of flexibility really helps people's imagination, really helps people's ability to create. Let's see here. There we go. Now then, I also wanted to say it's a really fine line between plenty of time to finish and plenty of time. Let me adjust the... Yeah. That's me. Plenty of time to procrastinate. Oh, yep, that's big true. Absolutely. Yeah, game jams with definitely have that fine line. And so does the industry, if you think, honestly. Like, that's one of the downsides of working in game development, is that if you are in the industry and you have a game that needs to ship, you might need to be working 12-hour days. And it's not fair to ask that of employees on one hand. On the other hand, it's not uncommon for the employees of a game company to want to do that. Like, it's actually pretty common for the team to say, no, but I want to be here. I want to work these hours because I want the game to be as good as it can possibly be. And that can be a difficult expectation to force on people. Because on one hand, this also goes into animation and other productions as well, by the way. Disney also has a huge problem with this. I say problem, but also has a huge situation like this. Creating mods, actually, yeah, I will actually talk about mods in a few moments. But yeah, there is the idea of crunch is bad when you force it or demand it of people. But there are certainly people who want to come to work to make their final product better. And there's many bosses in the world that want to hire people who want to put in more hours. And you can see where this is going. You can see how dangerous of a situation that naturally creates. And yeah. The only week-long jam I ever did, I ended up working around 48 hours on. That's reasonable. I mean, that's a 40-hour week. That's with a extra day. That's a reasonable amount of time. I think that's perfectly fair. So I expect to see a lot of really good games out of this game jam because it is a month long. I expect there to be people who wouldn't be able to put in the hours but still have the passion being able to complete their works. I expect to see people who are going to actually be putting in 80 hours a week, all 4 weeks, creating masterpieces. And I look forward to seeing and judging them, everyone according to their merit, which is not an easy thing to do. I mean, you want to judge everybody according to what's fair to be judged on, But is it fair to judge somebody based off of their work and compare it to somebody who simply has more hours in the day? Well, yeah, it is, unfortunately. but we have enough time in this one that people can create everything that they can create to their heart's desire. Do we have anyone here who has a game jam veterans? Would like to share their experiences in a game jam? I know it's also very common for people to do, I don't know if there's a proper term for it. I call it a casual jam. I just shifted the logo a bit, yeah. I call it a casual jam, where you make a game alongside a game jam, but not actually enter it. I think there is, Mithy would have the exact number, but I think we have over 200 people signed up for this one, but I guarantee you there's going to be another 50%. There's going to be another 100 people or so. Make it bounce like a screensaver. I can do that. Pun. I guarantee you there's going to be another 100 people or so that are in the game jam that are not actually submitting. Can I do anything fancy? No, not really. That are not submitting. There's going to be plenty of people who are a part of the game jam, making games on the theme in the same time frame. Ninja Jam, yeah, okay, yeah. Who are not actually even officially participating. That's actually quite common. So, whatever numbers you see in a game jam, assume there's going to be an extra 40% or so. 509, almost 600 participants. Golly, wow! I didn't realize we hit those numbers. That's fantastic. That's gonna be a lot of judging. I'm looking forward to that. Let's see. Yeah, there's gonna be 600 different. Well, there's gonna be around 600. There's gonna be around 600 entries as of now. We still have another 2 weeks before the deadline. A certain percentage of them will drop out, and a certain percentage of them of that number will also be making on new games without being an official part of the game jam. We are the biggest Godot jam in history. And if we keep this up as an annual event, it will continue to be because we'll get even more. You think we'll have about a 18% completion rate? That's actually a really good question, Raging Shark. Mithy will be able to answer that question. Mithy will be able to answer that question better than I can. I don't think we've actually discussed that. Well, it has to be. Well, this particular one has to be Godot. This one has to be in the Godot engine. But in general, for a game jam, that will depend on the particular group. This particular one has to be in Godot engine, but I think you can do board games for something like, oh, what's the name of that jam called? The Game Maker's Toolkit game jam. I forget the name of it. Or some of those usually will let you enter in a board game or other tabletop experience. It really just depends on the jam. This particular one does not can't do a board game though. If a virtual board game is fine. A virtual board game is perfectly fine, and honestly would be pretty great. There's a lot of really good virtual board games on the market right now, especially because of the increase of remote gaming. There's a healthy number of tabletop games that are now available online. Spirit Island recently got an online release. Spirit Island's a fantastic board game, by the way. If you haven't played it, it's really just legitimately one of the best board games on the market. And that recently got a Steam release. Or Orange 100%. Plus all the Games Workshop stuff is available. Tabletop Simulator is just the best buy on Steam. Overall, the best buy on Steam, full stop, is Tabletop Simulator, because it comes with so many other games included in it. Dungeons and Dragons, I mean, obviously. So, I think, I could be wrong, but I think there are game jams where you make... Oh yeah, Magic the Gathering came out in the past 18 months too. I didn't really think about that in the same list. Yeah, that's true. Dungeons and Dragons, I think they might have game jams for creating campaigns. I don't know. I haven't looked into it. Maybe I should. Maybe I should look into that. I bet they do. I bet they do. But yeah, this one is going to be all about the Godot game engine. And that should be exciting. So, what other Godot games are we going to be playing on the channel? Is something that I've been asked. One sec here. Let me pull it up because I have a list. So Godot has a showcase. And one thing I learned about Godot early on is that it's more versatile than I expected. I expected it to be pretty weak. I expected it to be weak compared to the other tools that were available on the market. And I'm really glad to say I was wrong. There are some games where you don't notice the engine. Like, sometimes you're playing a game and you don't recognize what the engine is, and honestly, that's good. Like, the engine shouldn't be the forefront in your mind, otherwise you have failed at immersing your audience, right? Like, if you're thinking about the engine while playing the game, that usually means that something has gone sideways and that you have lost your immersion, whether it's noticing the Havoc physics engine with ragdolling bodies, or noticing weird shiny lighting effects with Unreal, or rebuilding lighting like in Unreal as well, or just Unity being Unity. Sometimes you can just see a wall and walk up and feel like, oh, yep, this is in Unity engine because I've played the game with this exact movement pre-built asset before. So, if you have a thought about what the engine is, usually that's not a great sign. And I was really pleased to say that when I was playing some of the Godot games, I didn't recognize them on the limitations of the engine. Does that make sense? I didn't recognize the games as running off of the limitations of the game engine. Splash screens are fine because the splash screen is before you're playing. So suspension of disbelief doesn't really apply on the loading screen, in my opinion. Yeah, Godot suffers from not having marketing. That's true. Yeah, a splash screen at the beginning is fine. It's a question of when you're playing the game, is something taking you out of the game? You see what I'm saying? Like, a splash screen will tell you what engine it is, but it's not going to stop your enjoyment of the game as you play it. Whereas playing Dark Souls and watching a body ragdoll around as if it has no weight because you walked into it, and have it or having a sword, infinitely spinning on the ground, even because it's been programmed as a cylinder as opposed to a plane, those take you out of the game. Those take out your... I guess verisimilitude would be work, but... Unity splash screen can be associated with a low-quality asset flip, but that's not a fair... That's not a fair condemnation, is what I'm going to say. Because, well, there are really very good games with Unity splash screens on them. Shadow Tactics has a Unity splash screen, and it's a phenomenal game. Thinking about the engine when playing a game is a reflection on the game and how its developers have used the engine rather than on the engine itself. Okay. I see where you're coming from on that. And yeah, there are limitations in Godot in 3D, but honestly, I can't think of the last time I saw a Game Jam game that was in 3D. Like, it's been a hot minute since... Usually people in Game Jams end up making 2D artwork anyways because it's easier and more convenient and, well, faster. And because, time is a valuable asset in there. But yes. Primal Light, I just premiered last night. Was it last night? I think it was last night. Yes. Primal Light I premiered last night, and that was an excellent example of Godot working to Godot's strengths. There was a couple moments in there... Okay. I'm going to be honest with you, friends. There was a moment or two when I was recording the Primal Light game that I was about to reach for a quick save button on my emulator because the game felt like it was an emulated Super Nintendo game, not like it was a modern indie game. And yes, Tulofbees is the Hivetime lead developer, who I am going to have on the channel. We're going to figure out the time, but I'm going to have them on the channel to talk about their experiences in Godot and as a game engine. And they've also provided some their thoughts on the Godot projects and a Game Jam survival guide, which I'm excited to add to our information in our data pack for the Go Godot Jam. I think that is going to be super valuable. Very cool dude. Let's see. Where was I? Oh, yes. Yeah, they are very nice. They are a cool person. 3D isn't all that hard. All you have to do is make the mesh, make the texture, make the normal, make the roughness, make the height map, count for lighting. Oh yeah, and 16 other steps, and then you do that for every single asset, and then you don't want to reuse textures too often, so you need to make a very texture variance on things as well, and that's easy enough to do. It's just, time, and when time is a valuable resource, time is, a thing. It's just like a whole thing. I should make a separate layer for the foreground parts of my cave, shouldn't I? It'd be cool. Oh, and I mentioned... Oh, redefine. I'm pretty sure that was sass. I'm pretty sure they were just being sassy. Yep. Honestly, though, there are fast ways and efficient ways of doing that on 3D stuff, and honestly, if you want to do a really impressive Game Jam event, yeah, drop a 3D game on them. The judges will take a moment to step back and go, wow. Because it's just so uncommon. And you can do a lot of work with simple 3D models. Easy peasy, just push the shader button. Yep, there you go. Easy, that's all I gotta do. Just push the shader button and it looks good. Sad thing is that's kind of true sometimes, isn't it? Like, there's definitely some games where you hit the shader button and it goes and and the shader button can end up being a make game look good button. Like in Unity, well, my experience is in Unity. I think I've mentioned that a couple times, but yeah, there's some times where, or 2D physical modeling as well. Washes. If you do actual painted miniatures, the wash that you put on at the very end is liquid talent. I've had models go from looking super dull to looking phenomenal just by putting the wash on it, which is honestly just the real life equivalent of a good shader. There are 3D artists who feel like they're slow at 2D art, but in general, 3D art has a lot more going on, and it has a lot more bugs to hunt. It's just a question of time resourcing. Yeah, fair enough. We have people who are in here who are standing up for 3D art in game jams, which I respect it. I absolutely respect that. If you can pull off a 3D art in a short range game jam situation, that's fantastic. I will continue to be impressed. Like, yeah. Let's see. So I'm going to be playing a handful of other Godot games, and I'm going to ask if anybody has any requests to put them on my Twitter, or put them toward the Go Godot Game Jam Twitter, and I will notice it. If you have a game that's been made in Godot and you would like to see me play it on my channel, I'll be more than glad. I'm also really surprised at the number of... Actually, here's a question you know what? We're just gonna do this live. Hey, Mithy, I have a question for you. How are we defining game? Can somebody make a game-making utility as a part of the jam? Because I noticed that a lot of the things in Godot are actually for creating other stuff. Like, there's Material Maker, there's the RPG in a Box, there's Pixelrama. Those aren't quote-unquote games, but they are game utilities that are made in Godot. So, I'm going to ask you, I'm just here in chat, we're in chat, we're chatting, this is just a chill stream where we're just hanging out. So, what do you think of that? Aw, thank you, Raging Shark. I think this is one of the first times you've seen me live, because the other comments you've had have been on my pre-recorded stuff. I need to write next week's schedule too, but that's a whole separate thing. Yes, there's Rogues. I always want to hear everything that's interesting. Absolutely. Godot is built in Godot. Wait a minute. Hold on. That's not how things work. That's not how things work at all. How did they make Godot in Godot? Like, it's chicken and the egg. You have to have made one of them first. So they made Godot in what? C#, and then they made the rest of Godot in Godot? That's actually pretty neat. You already have a game that creates games. Sure, why not? A video on making tools, I think, would be pretty valuable. Just because that's targeting a different audience, which is, already going to be very useful for some people. But I find that tool creation to be very difficult. Creating a tool that creates other things, to me, is harder than creating an internal tool. Like, when you're making a game, you make internal tools. Like, you will make a program that helps you make maps for your specific game. But finding a way to externalize that and make it work for anybody has given me difficulty. I'm not saying it's hard for other people. It's probably super easy, honestly. But for me, that's always been something that I've just blanked on. Like, okay, I have this tool for creating a whole bunch of my internal assets, and if anybody else saw it, their eyes would burst into flame. If anybody else saw it, it would not help them make a thing. When you double click it, what you see is a Godot game, basically. Okay, that's sure cool. I did not know that. And you can use the same functionality to create in-game editors for various things. Okay, yeah, like map makers. Remember back in mid-90s, wasn't it? Late 90s, rather, when Warcraft 2 came out with a separate Warcraft 2 map maker, and it was just absolutely revolutionary. Like, it was just completely shocking. Everybody was like, oh my gosh, they can do that? I remember the entire community just being absolutely floored that they would release one of their internal utilities to the public just to make anybody make a map. That's insane. And then, you know, some of the best games were made in their game and they lost rights, and the Blizzard will never do that again. So let's move on from there. That just is a thing. I'm referring to Dota, in case that wasn't clear. Yeah, Warcraft 3's editor was surprisingly robust. I mean, okay, it's not surprising because they had to use it to make all the games themselves, but it's surprising that they publicized it to me. At least it was at the time, especially. Like, I've seen some of the Fallout 2 internal stuff. Like, I actually have a copy of some of the Fallout 2 tech demo, or Fallout 1 actually, tech demo internal creation stuff. And yeah, if you're not coding the game, it's meaningless. You can't make something with it unless you are making it for that. Like, and this is something I wanted to talk about with what Shark was saying before, and now's a great time to segue into it, is nowadays making mods is accessible. People who have never made a game can mod Skyrim. I mean, make a mod for Skyrim. People who have never even really thought about coding before can pick up the tools and start creating Skyrim mods within a couple days. And that's just really awesome. But actual game making tools are easier as well. And in some ways, making a mod now, how can I phrase this? I have a thought in my mind and I'm trying to figure out how to put it into words. Making a mod now is easier than making a game was back then. Right, so, well, it's easier. I don't know. There's a weird comparison between the difficulty of making a mod and the difficulty of making an entire game. And both of those lines have become a lot easier over the years. As a general rule, almost all internal tools are bare minimum of what they need to be to get work done. Yep, absolutely. General purpose tools designed for use externally are always a huge amount more effort and are super impressive. Yep, absolute. Big same on that. Completely. Yeah, the TES construction kit that came with Morrowind didn't require much existing experience or programming skills. And honestly, that's really why the Elder Scrolls, on the whole, has become a franchise that we remember. Like, it would have been very easy for Elder Scrolls to fade away in the background. And I guess this is a slightly different discussion, but it's certainly tangential, is that the existence of free mods helps your bottom line. If you're making a game and you have free mods of modability, people will keep playing it. The more retention you have, the more people talk about it. The more people talk about it, the more people buy it. If Elder Scrolls 6 comes out and they don't have public-facing mod tools and they try to monetize all of the mods, they're going to kill the golden goose. And I think that Bethesda might kill their own golden goose and there's a genuine chance that they might destroy the series of Elder Scrolls by denying those the ability for it to self-perpetuate through its own modding ecosystem. Now, obviously, there'll be some people who can make them anyways, but the ease and accessibility that anybody has to make their own modding tools and their own mods has been a staple of why those games have such legs, why those games have such lasting power. And yes, they did try to monetize Skyrim mods, and then they walked it back, and then they tried again in a different way to monetize Skyrim mods in a way that people could do it themselves and then pay the creators of the mods, and they took a cut, almost like an app store with a 30% cut. There's a lot of things there, but the fact is that even within Skyrim, all the mods are still available for free, with very few exceptions. And my fear is that they might try to make it a closed ecosystem. They might try to monetize all mods and say, okay, if you want to make a free mod, you can't use the Nexus downloader, you have to use the official channels and follow our official guidelines, which means no Nintendo IP properties, no Zelda, mods for Skyrim, no Master Swords, which means no 18 plus mods, which are, yeah, those are definitely very popular, exceedingly popular. Even more so now that the game works in VR. You'd have to change everything about the game. And I think that's what I mean about killing the golden goose. If they do that, it's not going to be worth the effort to mod because you have to jump through so many hoops, and then if people don't mod, not as many people, then people play the game and put it down. If something like, I don't know, Metro had a modding ecosystem, then we might, see a lot more of that in the way that we see Skyrim. Metro is a great game, but you don't see Metro the way you see Skyrim. Like, it doesn't have that cultural weight. It doesn't have that momentum that Skyrim got, and Skyrim got that because of the mods. In my humble opinion, I suppose I should clarify that everything I say is in my humble opinion. Okay, some of it's not humble, but everything I say is in my opinion at the very least, and that counts for something. But yeah, if a game gets boring, you mod it. Instead of buying a new game, you just keep the same game, add some mods, and have fun. And that's great. That's phenomenal. That's fantastic. And some mods change so much of the game that it becomes a new game. I can think of a couple mods around Skyrim that really made Skyrim its own different style of game, or that based off that. Yeah, Chevaliers, don't hate me, I've never finished Skyrim. I didn't beat Skyrim for like 6 years. And I'll tell you why. Every Skyrim character I made had their own goal. And that goal wasn't actually finishing the main quest. I made a thief. I did all the Thieves Guild, and I did all the Dark Brotherhood, and I roleplayed in my own story between the two, where my character, because they were foundational in both, blended the Thieves Guild into the Dark Brotherhood and made them a single unified guild. And then I retired that character because that character was complete. Then I came back and played again a year or two later, and I think I did Fighters Guild quests and all of the... what was it? All of the Daedric Prince quests. All of the Daedric quests. And once I did all that, this character was the greatest fighter in this land and the next land beyond. And I retired that character. And I just kept on doing that because that's how I enjoy playing Skyrim. Or I should say that's how I enjoy playing Elder Scrolls games, and Fallout games for that matter. But you don't have to... the Dark Thiefhood, yes. But yeah, you don't need to do the main quest. And in a lot of ways, the main quest is the least interesting, honestly. So I've never actually played The Witcher. I'm going to play it on the channel. But I've read all of the Witcher novels. So I think that'll be an interesting playthrough when I play it, because I'll be adding my own commentary based on what I know about The Witcher as a world, rather than the actual history of the games. But anyways, where was I? Oh yeah, that one thing more thing on the topic of mods in Skyrim. There's a mod, my favorite mod. It's Inigo, the companion, adds a new companion. And Inigo makes the base game better, because he has voice lines that commentate on everything that you're doing. So you'll be playing just a regular game of Skyrim, going through the regular quests, but it becomes more engaging because you have a companion that is interesting, has a ton of voice lines, just absolutely incredible voice talent, just everywhere. And they actively participate as a non-silent character, as a non-silent... there's a word for that. The character that is alongside a silent protagonist to help voice them in the story. And it works exceptionally well. And as far as Oblivion being not the kind of game, Oblivion moving away from the kind of game you appreciate, and Skyrim traveling farther, I agree. I can definitely see where you're coming from on that, and I can't even pretend to disagree. Yeah, Companion that gives commentary and stuff is a fantastic mod. It's Inigo, I-N-I-G-O. It's a Khajiit companion that adds so much personality to what is otherwise fairly generic fantasy questing. I highly recommend that one. But yeah, Skyrim is an action game. I don't really even consider Skyrim an RPG at this point. Same and double so with Fallout 4. Fallout 4 is a halfway decent action game with survival elements. That's my take on it. Now, that's not a bad thing. And there's a lot you can say about perception. There's a lot you can say about going into the game thinking of it in that way. If you think of Skyrim as a classic RPG in the vein of Heroes of Might and Magic, of Might and Magic, or in the vein of Morrowind or the classic Fallouts, you're going to have a bad time, because it's not. But it's also okay that it's not if you go into it with a different expectation. If you go into the expectation of the game separately, it becomes more fun. Okay, let me tell you a story. When I first played BioShock, I hated it. I hated BioShock the first time I played it. Because when I first played BioShock, I was told by the game's developers, by the advertising, by every bit of media that I could find, this is a spiritual successor to System Shock 2. This is the game based off the classic franchise of System Shock. This is the new entry of the Shock series, I think someone actually called it in games media back then. It's not. It's not. It's barely even a horror game. It's not a survival game. But I went into BioShock conserving every piece of ammo, sneaking around, only taking headshots so I could preserve it, only using my pistol so I had the bigger ammo in case there was something more big and dangerous and diabolical around the corner. And I had a terrible time with it because that's not the game. That's just not what the game is. But that is what System Shock 2 is. That is what System Shock 2 is about. So my thoughts were not necessarily wrong. They were just misplaced because all of my expectations were led to believe that this was a System Shock style game. And I dropped it. I dropped it around the time when I realized that I didn't have anything to fear, because System Shock 2 is a great game, and is also one of the only horror games that I really enjoyed before Soma. I did enjoy Soma, by the way, even though I was genuinely spooked at multiple points. Anyways. Once I thought of BioShock as an action game, I enjoyed it. I went into BioShock and said to myself, this is an action game. this is just a shooter. I just need to play this as if I'm playing Dark Forces or Doom. Maybe not quite as much Doom, but no, not that. I was more in that mindset. I took myself out of the mindset of this is a survival horror game, and into the mindset of this is an action game where I am going to be farming big daddies as for their combat drops. And yeah, that's also my experience with Skyrim. Because Skyrim, and Fallout for that matter, but Skyrim is good as an action-adventure game. It's bad as an RPG. Well, it's suboptimal as an RPG. I'll say that instead. It's not ideal as an RPG if you are thinking of an RPG in the classic sense, in the classic gamer sense of, like I said, the Might and Magic games or the Morrowind games. But if you retool your brain, you'll have a lot more fun with it if you go into it with a different set of expectations. And Thief series, I played a little bit of one of them, and then I was told afterwards that the one that I played was the worst one, and it was absolutely terrible. So I don't really know what to do about Thief. Like, on one hand, it looks great, but I don't even remember which one I played. And yeah. Oh, hi, Sapphire. But I don't even remember which Thief I played. But yeah, I do like stealth games. I do really enjoy stealth games. I will probably play one of them on the channel, though. Yeah, wanting something different can lead to preconceptions that lead to a negative experience. That's exactly what I'm saying. So, and by extension, being able to sit back and retool your mind after having a negative experience, and telling yourself, "Hey, what mindset does the developer want me to be in?" Because sometimes you can't find that. And again, as a developer, sometimes you can't find that. Sometimes as a developer, you can't trust your audience to find the experience that you are trying to create. Which is, unfortunate, but it happens sometimes. And as a player, you can step back. I think it was the remake, the one that was Thief. When was the remake made? I'm going to actually look that up real quick. I think it was Thief 2014, where they remade it, was the one that was got poor reviews. No, maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, then I imagine that other people have the opposite experience that I had, that went into Dishonored with the expectation of it being like a running shooter. I expect there's people who picked up Dishonored and said, "Oh yeah, this is going to be an action-y shooter game," and then learned that it wasn't, and I imagine those people didn't enjoy it. Which is unfortunate. But, I mean, again, these things happen just because of expectations. I'm talking a long time ago. Yeah, I would definitely be down for playing some of the old ones on the channel. I think the next... I am actually going to be running a long-run series of Sniper, Ghost Warrior Contracts. That's actually going to be one of the series I'm going to be coming up with in the near future. That, and I'm going to be finishing A Hat in Time, because Hat in Time is just a delight. Thief 2 is the strongest. Do you have to play Thief 1 to play Thief 2? Because sometimes going too far back in time can not always be phenomenal. But yeah, I would not be opposed to trying out some of the classic Thief games. I probably would enjoy them significantly. But what are some of your favorite Game Jam games, or games that started as Game Jam games, I guess is what I'm trying to say. The one that I think of off the top of my head is Princess Remedy. Yeah, I love RPGs, walking simulators. Because I like the experience of a story, and as my background as an actor, I enjoy acting out those roles with you guys. I think that's a lot of fun. And I will be doing more. I don't know if I'll be going back to. I'll probably be doing Scum. I'll probably do Sunless Skies with Fenrig at some point in the future. You can be comfortable with playing Thief 2 without playing 1? Oh, but best to start with 1? That makes sense. That makes sense. I will be doing, Monday, we're going to be continuing the Lion Song. Finishing the last 3 chapters of that, which, if you missed the Lion Song, I'm actually really proud of that stream. That was a week and a half ago. That was right before I left on my vacation. I recommend going back and watching that if you're if you're in the mood for that style. Slow-paced, story-driven. Redefined Game Dev hates it. But it was my speed. I liked it. Thief 3 focuses on being on the third person, which removes a lot of the claustrophobia. Oh. It seems like that would make it too easy to look around corners, but I don't know. I mean, I guess you have to make your level design in order to account for that. And if they did, then that's fine. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. That's perfectly valid. Overall, my favorite... stealth games are some of my favorite. I love stealth games. I love games... How can I put this? I love games where the world is worth looking into. I think that's the best way I can describe it. I like games where the world is worth taking the effort to look into. And that's not as terribly common. Now, I like classic sci-fi. My favorite author is Isaac Asimov. And Isaac Asimov firmly believes that the setting is a character. The setting is a character and deserves as much character development as your main character, as your protagonist. The setting of any science fiction or fantasy world needs to be developed and built upon over time, over the story and as you learn about it. And there's a lot of tiny details in some games, and I think that also goes into what Tulof Bees was saying about Skyrim. If you look into Morrowind, that world has so much interesting, fascinating lore in it. There's so many tiny bits of lore that just feed into your desire to learn about the world itself. Dark Souls is the classic example because the lore and the story is actually found through looking around the world. One of the most interesting parts of Dark Souls 1 is finding one of the Channeler's robes in Blighttown. Now, many gamers picked up those robes and said, "Oh, hey, neat, cool robes. This is a loot drop, I'll take it." But if you actually care about the story in the world, you find the Channeler's robes, you realize, wait, this is one of the Channelers that was supposed to never leave Anne Orlando. No. Not, what is it called? The Depths, the city... heck, I forgot the name. But you find one of the channelers that is supposed to be in, New Londo Ruins, and why were they there? And that's actually what a major plot point. A major plot point is why is one of the channelers from New Londo in Blighttown? And like, I like games that make me realize that on my own, instead of feeding me the plot line entirely with a spoon. Does that make sense? I don't know if that makes sense, but it makes sense to me. Morrowind and Fallout are both very good examples of that, and in the Elder Scrolls franchise, they started stepping away from that. Oblivion is a lot more generic Western RPG because they wanted to hit a wider market, but they kept a lot of the stuff that was in Morrowind, but they also dropped many of the more unique options. Sakuna of Rice and Ruin does look like a game I want to play, but Ina played it on her channel recently, and I don't want to play something that Ina had just played in the, right away. Okami I might play. But, yeah. And then Skyrim pushed even further away from that. Skyrim is its own world, but it doesn't really feel like a... It doesn't feel anything like Morrowind. Divinity is a fantastic game. I have actually played it recently, and I might collab it with it sometime if I get an opportunity, but I don't... Other than that... Divinity is phenomenal because it's made to be two players. You don't have a lot of games, especially in the RPG genre, that are made from the ground up to be made for multiplayer. Because the RPG genre is classically single player. And two people playing an RPG together is just a delight. It's just a wonderful way to experience that world. That's why people have wanted a multiplayer Elder Scrolls games since Morrowind. Yeah, and I agree. Oblivion is a good game. It's not as evocative as Morrowind's harsh and alien world. Absolutely. You're 100% correct on that. It doesn't make Oblivion a bad game. It just doesn't feel like, doesn't feel like the same world. And I think it's not inevitable. And that's the thing that people need to realize, is that it's not inevitable. Because Fallout New Vegas exists, friends. Fallout New Vegas exists, and it's phenomenal, and it feels, even though it is a modern game, even though it does use the Fallout 3 engine and the Fallout 3, many of the mechanics, even though it is, in many ways, a more accessible game, it feels like Fallout 2. It does not feel like Fallout 3. It feels like the classic Fallout worlds. Like, this is not an inevitability. It's not a problem where more fidelity or more popularity or more development money requires you to make a safer game, requires you to make a less interesting game, requires you to move away from those plans. Because Obsidian walked up and said, hey, what about this? And it was phenomenal. Fallout New Vegas is on par with Fallout 2 in terms of the way it presents its world, despite being two games that, that at a glance seem, as different as possible. One being a top-down and the other one being a first-person shooter. But it's about the feel. And I've been thinking a lot about game feel. For whatever definition you want to give that. I've been thinking a lot about game feel because of Primal Light. Because Primal Light does a lot of things in its tutorialization that make the game feel more like a Super Nintendo game. And this is what I was getting into before when we were talking about the Godot engine not holding it back. It feels like a Super Nintendo game, not because of the mechanics, but because of the expectations on the player. And because of the options that you have available to you when you play. It just feels more like a Super Nintendo game in good ways. The classic example of this, if you haven't seen Game Maker's Toolkit's video on Shovel Knight, I think that is my favorite of all of his videos, and I don't say that lightly, as I'm sure you guys know. Game Maker's Toolkit is a phenomenal channel. And his video on Shovel Knight goes into detail about how the game feels like a retro game, even though it doesn't mechanically act like a retro game. And that's something that I feel that Primal Light succeeds in as well. What's it? Daggerfall has a generic Western fantasy perception, so it's a big part of the franchise's heritage. Yeah, that's true. That's fair. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Daggerfall is a good game. Even if you like Dagger... There's nothing wrong with liking it, but let's be honest with ourselves. That game has not aged well, despite other games from the same era having aged well. And also that the Elder Scrolls is willing to step in and out of that that information. Because in Morrowind, they say that the most common lycanthrope in Skyrim is a werebear. And I'll be honest, like, that's actually in the lore of Morrowind. When they're talking about Skyrim, they say that the most common lycanthrope found in the Skyrim region is a werebear. So I literally booted up Skyrim hype for werebears. Because how cool is that? It's a werebear. Like, what's not to love about that? That's amazing. Yeah, no, they didn't. They just gave them generic werewolves. And they made an entire plotline based on generic werewolves that could have been about werebears, and it would have been awesome. Oh well. You know what? Is there a mod for that? Hold on. You know what? I'm looking this up. Is there a mod for Skyrim to make it werebears? Like, just to redo the entire Fighters Guild questline. There is. Werewolf and werebear overhaul. Phenomenal. I love it. I'm gonna need to do that. You know what I want right now? This is just a quick aside because I see other things that I want to respond to in chat. But I just really quickly want to say I want Morrowind. I think that's what they're calling it. I want them to finish the Morrowind in Skyrim because Skyrim VR allows mods. And I really want to play Morrowind in VR. And I will stream that. If that actually comes out in a playable manner, I will absolutely stream Morrowind in VR. And I am so hyped for it. Right, okay, sorry. But the quick aside on that one. A simple story is a walking simulator? Okay. Story with someone game is entirely two-player. Oh. That does sound interesting. I might have to find another VTuber to collab that with. Yeah, Skywind. That's the one. And then the other one is people are trying to remake Fallout New Vegas in Fallout 4, which honestly feels like a losing battle just because Fallout New Vegas has so much better mechanics than Fallout 4. Like, even though Fallout 4 is a newer game, Fallout New Vegas genuinely has better mechanics. But I know someone who's looking at VR for Open Morrowind. Oh, that'd be interesting. Cool. Yeah, hit me up either on Twitter or on my or email. I'd be curious about that. I might be able to give them some publicity on it as well if it's playable. Where was I? Yeah, Fallout New Vegas and Fallout 4 seems even harder because Fallout New Vegas just has a different mechanic set. But at the same time, oh man, would I give so much to play New Vegas in VR. I love VR, and I wish with all my heart that VR had a better developmental pathway to success. So, there's a chicken and the egg. What comes first? The new game system or the new games? Well, the new game system has to exist, right? Okay. Well, here's a game system. It exists. Are you going to make games for it? Well, if it's popular, I'll make games for it. Okay. Well, it'll be popular when there's games out. Okay, I'll start making games for it as soon as it's popular. Okay, but who's going to make the games that'll help make the system popular? This is an argument that's gone back through history, though it usually applies to console generations in a time where console generations were exceedingly difficult to create cross-platform. I mean, I can right now go into Unity and hit render as to make a Switch game, a PS4 game, a PS5 game, or a PC game. Like nowadays, that's a lot more easier to work with. But back in the day, back in the long goes, making a Switch game or making a N64 game was completely incompatible with making an Xbox game. And in those eras, you had systems that died for the same reasons that VR is struggling right now, is that people wouldn't buy a Dreamcast until better games came out, and developers wouldn't spend the effort on building a Dreamcast game until the Dreamcast sales improved. which is why Nintendo has always been really good about first-party stuff, because, well, that's what gets the system off the ground. But that's what we see in VR right now, and VR is like the old classic consoles in that you can't develop a VR game and then push a button to release it on 2D, on a regular flat screen. It just doesn't work that way. It just can't work that way, and it shouldn't work that way. Like, it just is a completely different beast. So, right now, and for the past couple years, we've seen a whole bunch of VR technology without a huge killer app that says, oh, I'm buying VR for this. And even in the situations with the cool ports, like Skyrim VR rules, I love it. It's buggy, but rules because it allows mods, and mods fix the bugs, so no problem. But those are still ports. Those aren't new games. Those aren't experiences you need. Like, the only real killer app in VR that you must do entirely in VR is Beat Saber. Is that it? What are we going to say? It's just Beat Saber? Google Earth, I guess, but that's something that you can have on your phone. I mean, Half-Life Alyx is fantastic, but it doesn't quite fit the same. Yeah, Wii is another good example. Yeah. The Wii, trying to port a Wii game, or a 3DS game for that matter, into something else is a bloody nightmare, right? So we don't have that killer app that is going to sell VR headsets, and VR headsets aren't going to entice developers until more people have them. And it's risk management. It's a risk. It's a huge risk. The other problem with VR right now is that prices aren't going down. Like, you can buy a VR-ready video card. Okay, well, not right now because of other Bitcoin-y issues, but the price for... I bought my Vive, heck, 4 years ago? Oh my god, yeah, I think I got my Vive 4 years ago. And I got that Vive for $450 with shipping. Yep, I got it in 2016. I got that Vive for $450 on a Black Friday sale. And you know what? It's right now selling for more than I bought it 4 years ago. If the technology depreciated, if the price of VR technology depreciated like it would be expected to, you'd be able to pick up a VR-ready video card and a VR headset for the price of a modern console, of a PS5. And that would be a great place for VR, but unfortunately VR headsets are still costing $800, which is unfortunate because I think that the new VR headsets should be driving down the price of the old ones. But they're not right now, and that's a shame. I have a Vive. I should get the Tobii eye. If I got the Tobii eye tracking software or hardware, I could do Vive and have my VTuber model at the same time. That'd be really heckin' cool, wouldn't it? I do think that I want to play Talos Principle on the channel in VR. Okay, those are the stuff I wanted to respond to in chat. In New Vegas, NPCs reacted to you in a specific way, like on your actions you took, or how high your skills are. That was in Fallout 2. That was something that was not unique to New Vegas, but it wasn't in the classic. It wasn't in the previous Fallout game. Fallout is such an interesting franchise to look at. It really is fascinating. And I know I've plugged in before, but if you are interested in the ups and downs of Fallout, and you have a couple of hours to spare, look up H-Bomber Guy's video on Fallout 3, and then follow it with his video on Fallout New Vegas. I think both of them are like an hour and a half long, at least. But they are phenomenal videos that I highly recommend to anybody who's interested in game design in general, or about maintaining a franchise over time in specific. Very much looking forward to low-cost driverless HMDs. Yeah, that would be nice. That would have exposed standard monitors. Yeah, I mean, big screen works really well. I mean, there are productivity apps in VR, and I will fully admit that once in a while I will go into VR chat in a private room. So I'll just be sitting in like the Monster Hunter hub area, or a classic Legend of Zelda, or like a Final Fantasy XI map, like Alteo C, and just vibe there while I have big screen up actually doing work, or maybe just watching videos. So yeah, I think that the HMDs as productivity tools, or just as a different way of sitting at your computer, should exist, and honestly should have existed for the past year because of the other reasons that exist in the world right now, just as a way of virtual tourism, a way of getting out and existing in the world without, you know, having to exist in the world. Ah. I think, what was it? There was one that was on my radar that was making a 8K VR headset, and I don't know if they ever launched it. I tried their 4K... No, that's right, they did... I tried the 4K version of it when I was talking with their dev teams, and they had the 8K available, but it wasn't... they didn't have it up and running for a tech demo. So I tried their 4K model. Who was that? Heck. Okay. Pimax, yeah, Pimax. Like, my brain kept on saying Pixar. I'm like, no, it's not Pixar at all. Why would I even think that? But no. Pimax Vision 8K is the one I was thinking of. I met their dev team, and they are very cool people. And that would be the closest we'll see in the near future to a genuine sit down and work on editing or on coding while in Hawaii or wherever you want to be. Were anybody on any device? Okay. And yeah, as far as fidelity in VR, the best VR games are abstracted. The best VR games don't rely on fidelity. That's just how it do. The best VR games use all the game design tools we have to teach people about pattern recognitions and abstraction to make them look at the worlds in an easier way. Like the Oculus ended up adopting Valve tech. Well, they didn't do the lighthouses. I really like the lighthouse. I really like the lighthouse as a technology. The Vive lighthouses work exceptionally well, and I really value the room scale size. I like being able to walk around, like actually walk around. Sword Art Online is, I mean, aside from the fact that I could give anime opinions about that all day. I could absolutely just talk about Sword Art Online and with all of the opinions. But as far as a game concept goes, since this is a game dev stream, well, I'll do an anime stream in the future. I will absolutely do an anime stream in the discussion stream in the future. But as far as Sword Art Online world, you would think that would be something that people would be working on, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you think, like, you know, VR MMO would be the most exciting search option? But the thing is, it creates problems. It creates problems, A, because it's extremely difficult to develop in VR. Just for the reasons we discussed earlier. You have to And MMOs that rely on a subscription double that. If you have an MMO, then you need to have an audience that is going to be self-maintaining. This is going to sound bad, but it's not. I'm going to promise you right now, this is going to sound bad, but it's not. One of the game design goals of an MMO is to guilt your players into keeping their subscriptions active by getting them to self-regulate their teams. Oh, Roger, you can't quit. We need you for this next raid. Oh, I kind of want to stop playing this game, but, you know, I have people relying on me. You know, I'm just going to log in and talk to people as a chat room. That's really why I play the game these days, is so that I'm just hanging out with people. Yeah, no, that's how MMOs work. You make MMOs by... I don't want to say praying, because that makes it sound bad, but you perpetuate MMOs, you keep your numbers up by encouraging people to keep playing the game for the social aspect. And there's two reasons that doesn't work as well in VR. One, a lot of people don't have long-term VR legs. I'm not even talking about the people who can't handle the VR. I'm talking about people who play in VR for an hour or two and then need to return to the real world for a while. Which is fair and reasonable, perfectly reasonable. But that doesn't hit the MMO whales, and that doesn't hit the MMO community aspect of keeping people in self-regulating communities as well as you might hope. And I hope for a lot. But yeah, so VR MMOs, I mean, yeah, Orbis exists, and apparently they're doing okay, but it is not the most... Oh, Orbis has a demo. I did not realize that. I might check that out. But that's not necessarily an ideal situation to be in, if that makes sense. There was another VR game I was looking at. I mean, there's a lot of VR games I'm looking at, if I'm being honest. Heck. VR survival game. I can't remember. Ah well, regardless. Fidelity of motion capture. Honestly, the fidelity is pretty good in on the Vive, at least. It's better on the Vive than it is on the Rift, which is part of why I prefer the Vive. But it's sub-millimeter. Like, even the classic one that I got 4 years ago is a sub-millimeter tracking. And that's pretty heckin' good. As far as a university professor for a virtual tour, 100% agree. And yeah, someone else who calls it the plague. I like that. I big agree. I've been calling it that for a while because it gives it more weight. I don't talk about it on the channel because I don't like to bring up anything heavy like that. But using VR as either tourism or as real estate. I just imagine someone renting a lighthouse camera and taking a bunch of pictures in using the lighthouse effect, so you have that flawless, beautiful representation of a home, and market that towards real estate agents who want to sell homes to people who are living thousands of years away, or thousands of miles away. Thousands of years. What I don't know. My mind did a thing. I think that's a fantastic application for a VR, and I think that genuinely could be $1 million idea if you sold it to the right group. And yeah, if VR is more accessible, then having a VR MMO makes more sense. But once that chicken and the egg is sorted out, then yeah, maybe. But I still think that the expected playtime is going to be difficult for people. I still think that a lot of people are going to have a poor experience with the amount of playtime required, because yeah, not every MMO requires you to be playing for 8 hours at a time, but at the same time you want to encourage that. Like, you want to get your players on to be on for as much as possible, and that's harder to convince people on VR. Oh yeah, the every core feature of both the Vive and the Rift and the Vive HMDs are derived from the Valve's research program. Yeah, no question, absolutely. but the lighthouses themselves make a huge difference. Just in bandwidth and tracking, you can do more with the lighthouses because the lighthouses are stationary points that don't need to communicate, as opposed to having to communicate out from the headset back into the headset and getting all of your positionals, and then the headset also tracking the control. You hit bandwidth issues really quick. You hit lots of bandwidth issues extremely quickly. Whereas you can have a Vive with 2 controllers and 7 tracking pucks for doing effectively full mocap. I've done mocap in VR. It's fun, and you're fine. You're just fine. I would call Oculus the first Steam VR licensee. Yeah, well, yeah. As far as the Elon Musk stuff, I mean, I don't know. Sure, if he goes in that direction, he could make some interesting stuff. Also, I will also add that Elon Musk is doing the same thing that I was talking about with game design companies earlier, which is encouraging, looking to hire employees that want to work hard. He hires the kind of people that Disney hire or that game dev studios hire, because they hire people who want to work extra hours to make a product better, but then you try to get those expectations on people who don't, for people who just want to work their job, and that becomes a very unfair situation. But we're not going to talk about capitalism here. Nope, that's not the plan. Bum 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 bum. And Elon Musk just watched Sword Art Online and said, "Yeah, I know I can do that," and he's talking out his butt, to be perfectly honest. A VR function for a game like The Forest or Breath of the Wild. There was a game that I was actually trying to look up that I can't find. Where is it? Heck. There is a game that's a survival VR game that looks a lot like Genshin Impact, if I'm being honest. Okay, no, not that. It's gonna bug me if I don't find it, so I'm just gonna take a quick moment to see if I can spot it. But I don't see it. Oh well. Yeah, there is somebody who is working on a game like that. And I am very excited for it to hit completion. I don't play any game that's in early access because the VR MMO is Orbis. I was talking about that earlier. Orbis is a full VR MMO that is currently out and available, and even has a free demo, which I didn't realize it had a free demo of, so I might actually try it out. It's very simplistic. It looks like a Rec Room in terms of what it offers for... in terms of what it offers graphically, but that's fine. Zenith? Is that the one I'm thinking of? Yeah, there's 2 VR MMOs on the horizon. Sorry for the delay on this. Is this the one I'm thinking of? Yes. Elisa and Zenith. Zenith is going to go more of a sci-fi route, and Elisa is going more of a fantasy route. And those are going to be those are both pre-release by a pretty hefty measure too. Both of those are not going to be out realistically, even though Zenith claims it will. I don't think either one of those are coming out this year. But there are a couple of VR MMOs that look frankly better than Orbis. Orbis, I have trouble getting over the graphics. It looks way too much like Rec Room for me to really vibe in it, for me to really vibe to it. There's one I just can't find right now that's bugging me. That's a Breath of the Wild style game, survival, like a cross between Ark and Breath of the Wild. I can't find it, and it's going to bug me for the rest of the night. And I will tweet about it once I find it, and I wonder if that project got cancelled, actually, now that I think about it. Maybe that project got cancelled. That'd be unfortunate. Well, yeah, there's going to be a few VR MMOs, a few more than exist right now, which is fine and good. And I hope that they are able to overcome those hurdles, but VR has a ways to go and a lot of hurdles to overcome. And I just want to say, if any of you make a VR game in the Game Jam, props. Nothing but mad props. I will be so hecking impressed. Yeah, there's a game much like Genshin Impact VR. Genshin Impact doesn't support VR itself, but their creators are hoping to... Heck. Genshin Impact is an interesting game. You know, that's also a really interesting discussion point, too, about expectations, which we were talking about earlier. Genshin Impact, when it first trailered at E3, whatever year that was, everybody slammed it because it looked like it was a Breath of the Wild clone. And it's like, so what? Every platformer isn't a Mario clone. There's room for multiple games in a genre. And the fact that Breath of the Wild is really good sounds like it's a great thing to clone. Heck, you want a game that's... I was looking to focus on creating VR games in Godot? Do it. Find a way. But yeah, there was people slamming Genshin Impact. It's like, oh, this is just a Breath of the Wild clone. Okay. I want to play more games like Breath of the Wild. Give me Breath of the Wild clones. I want them. Lead me to them. Lead me to all of them. And then also people, writing a game for pre-alpha footage 2 years before its release date was... that's game industry, though. That's the game industry. Clones are how genres develop. Absolutely. Absolutely. Every platformer is a Mario clone if you really want to get down to it, but that doesn't mean that they didn't all do something interesting, and when somebody does something interesting that sets them apart, well, then it's good. Like, Mega Man was a Mario clone until it was good, and then it became a Mega Man game. That's just how it be sometimes. You make clone, like... And we didn't really see the flood of Breath of the Wild clones that, honestly, I hope to see. I genuinely hoped we were going to see a bunch of Breath of the Wild clones, but we kind of didn't, did we? We saw a bunch of good games, but there's nothing else that really hits that feeling and mood. Alright, you have a good one. You have a good one, Chev. There wasn't a whole lot of games that really hit that same mood, and that's the core part of the Breath of the Wild experience, is that mood, is that feeling that the game evokes. And we saw precious few games that even tried to hit that. And in the end, Genshin Impact goes a completely different direction. It ends up being similar enough that there are some valid comparisons, but it's a very different style of game anyways. I will play Genshin Impact on the channel at some point, mostly because I know that people want me to play a gacha game. Because watching VTubers lose money is funny. And that's fair, it is. I'm not going to even pretend that it's not. But that's probably the only gacha game that I would play, would be Genshin Impact. Which I haven't really played, so it would be a new experience. And yeah, you need a bunch of things in a design space before you can appreciate the nuance between them, or make a justifiable complaint against them as well. I'm gonna say both sides of the coin there. I'm gonna say add both sides of that coin and say you need multiple games in a similar design space before you can appreciate the nuance between them, or before you can actually be justified in being angry at them for being bad. And you know what we saw that with relatively recently? I don't know, I guess time has passed. But Dark Souls. We saw a lot of Dark Souls clones, and we got some that were good. We got, what was it called? Yeah, we got a couple of Dark Souls clones that were actually quite good games in their own right. And we got some games that were just hack-eyed ripoffs that were bad. And we couldn't have appreciated the nuances of the games that were like Dark Souls but X if we didn't have enough games to make comparison points to. And we can't justifiably rip on the bad ones. Neo, that's what I was thinking of. Neo was when that was on the tip of my mind. And we can't feel justified in making fun of the bad ones until we have a genre that can be offering enough points of comparison to make those points valid. Does that make sense? Am I making sense to people? I have no idea if I make sense. I just say words. Sometimes I just open my mouth and just, words come out until I end the stream. I'm still giggling at the... I wish the Hat in Time video had better audio, because the Hat in Time 2 second episode was just me opening my mouth and just saying words. I played Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Yeah, no, I actually... I'm not going to say I completed it, because that's not fair, because I didn't do everything and catch every gacha, because heck that noise. But I basically completed Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I basically full cleared that game. A good game. It was okay. And yeah, no, that's an interesting... Honestly, the game Xenoblade Chronicles 2 also plays like an MMO. Like, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 plays like an MMO. And I think that's really interesting. And I like healing in MMOs, so I found out I had a lot more fun playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2 as a healer instead of as the main character, because the main character is a DPS, and DPS jobs in MMOs are boring to me. But once I switched and I started playing as Nia full time, it's like, oh, hey, wait, I get this game now. This is a good thing, that's fun. I think that acid flips should be seen as a positive and a valid form of expression in the way that mixed media collage is. I think that you and Redefined Game Dev need to go into the Rumble Dome and fight. That's my 2 cents there. I agree. I generally agree that I think that asset flips. Okay, well, okay. Let me give out my full thoughts on asset flips. Asset flips are fine depending on your goals. Like, okay. I'm not an artist. I'm not a modeler. I can do some programming, but I can't make art. Not reasonable art, not asset art that I can make, not functional art. But I can make cool concepts, I can make cool designs, I can even write some fancy code once in a while. And yes, asset flips are good for YouTube roasting. And but the way we discussed this, me and Redefined Game have discussed this before, is that what defines an asset flip is more about the effort that goes into it than the assets. An asset flip isn't about the assets, it's about the effort. If I come up with a cool game idea, let's go back to the hiking thing from the beginning of the stream. Let's say that I make a hiking game. Let's say that I make that hiking game that I was musing about at the very beginning of the stream. If I do that as a solo project, you know what? I actually thought enough about that was like a 6-hour hike, mind you. I actually thought enough about that game. I could probably make a halfway decent game out of it. I could probably write just to go out and script a game design document right now and make a more than viable game that would have complete asset flipped artwork, complete asset flipped music, complete asset flipped, etc. Is that an asset flip? Well, the discussion that Redefined Game Dev, that Mithy and I have had in the past has been, well, that's not what makes it an asset flip. What makes an asset flip is the effort or lack thereof that goes into making that game. So some people define asset flip as something that uses a whole bunch of Unity assets on the asset store. Other people define asset flip as game that is low effort and low quality to create. So it really depends on what you're talking about with asset flips. So in the sense of an asset flip that's a low effort pile of assets to try to capitalize on media, I think that asset flips are bad. If you're defining asset flip the way we were just discussed, and an asset flip is and a game that makes use of a bunch of pre-made assets, but still has an interesting and unique core that is being developed for a different type of experience, the game that has its own personality and goals and its design plans and its own its own unique game design document, not just that isn't just copy pasted, then I think that is a fantastic thing. The question there is what you define as an asset flip. That's really what it comes down to, is the good game an asset flip? Because there's also a tautological argument that once a game is good, it can no longer be an asset flip because asset flips are bad. Hooray, tautology! Once you make an asset flip, then it's once you call it an asset flip, then you define it as bad. I don't know. I think that the phrase asset flip needs to be broken down in the minds of regular people, because it's too easy for somebody to say, oh, hey, I know that walk cycle or something, and call a game an asset flip. Like, heck, I was playing Strange Brigade, which is a fantastic game. Phenomenal game. And there were a couple of moments where I was like, oh, hey, wait a minute. I recognize not a visual asset, but a gameplay asset. I recognized some of the physics mechanics that I was in when I was playing it. Now, I would never call that an asset flip because it's a phenomenal game that has its own goals and makes its own plans, but somebody else could, and that's being unfair. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I think that the question of asset flips is an interesting one. You get people disrespecting their audience regardless of whether they're asset flips made by one person or a studio that produced a game. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah, I'm not sure that providing a interesting experience or provoking interesting thought in players is mutually exclusive of putting in low effort. I am inclined to say that it is, just because if you are provoking an interesting experience or an interesting thought, and you are able to do it effectively, that's not a low effort result. If you're able to effectively create a experience and thought and feeling to your game effortlessly, heck, that's crazy. Go for it. You should become you should be a millionaire. Go, but it can take a lot of effort for those things to for these things. Like, I see what you're saying. I just don't necessarily agree, because putting in effort will at some point be required to make your vision come into a realization. At some point along the line, anyways. Everyone plays different. I use two-handed weapons in Breath of the Wild compared to my sisters who prefer one-handed weapons. Yeah, and making a game that works for many different people is very important. And that's how you're saying that MMOs do exceedingly well. We're just kind of jumping around all these topics today. That's something that MMOs do exceedingly well, is MMOs have something for everybody, and that's part of why they're able to maintain such a wide audience and for so long. Because playing a healing class is a completely different experience from playing a DPS, is a completely different experience from playing a tank, and 3 different tanks might have completely different experiences themselves. Final Fantasy XI and WildStar both had evasion tanks that were able to tank despite having paper armor, because of skills that gave them different abilities, and that was as different as, you know, you're playing effectively 2 different games. You're playing 2 complete different games. My mantra throughout Hive Time's development was do as much with as little as possible. Well, see, that is the effort. The effort is in the design stage then, right? Like, that's doing as much with as little as possible is where the effort is. I mean, that maybe you're not putting the effort into other aspects, but you're putting the effort into figuring out how to do that. Like, that is the effort, in my opinion. Like, how can I phrase this? The fact that you can say that, the fact that you can say, I want to do as much as little as possible, how can I do that? How can I make that the case? What do I need to do to realize that this concept, this vision, is the effort? So, you proved me right. Ha 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 ha. Good times. Bum, 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 bum. Oh, hey, my background is asset flipped. My VTube background. Yeah, this is something that is off the Unity asset store, both in music as well. Well, kind of. The background is pulled off the asset store and animated, and my pre-roll and post-roll are pulled off the asset floor, and the music is all Kodagamo. Kodagamo is, I licensed it. I actually have the digital media licensing for the music. I mean, obviously, I have to, because YouTube. But a lot of VTubers don't do that. Oh my gosh. A lot of VTubers don't license their music. Like, how can you not do that? That makes no sense to me. I don't see how you can... Anyways. But yeah, I put it together and use it for to create an ambiance and a mood. And that ambiance and mood is what drives what drives the emotional state that I'm trying to create. Jade the Kobold, known asset flipper. Oh no! But yeah, it's a parallax scrolling cave assets and Kodagamo RPG soundtrack. Kodagamo was fantastic, by the way. I do need to find a good fanfare to use for short intros. Which I'll probably end up licensing for somebody directly about. I'm not sure that I can subscribe to being thoughtful equating to effort. Sometimes it can take effort to achieve perspectives that facilitate that. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. I consider that effort. Music licensing machine is broken. Come again later. Oh. Sometimes it can take effort to achieve perspectives that facilitate that, and that's basically what I'm talking about. Like, there is thought, effort, and design being put into that aspect by your own definition, and that's really where I am talking about. When I think of bad asset flips, can you use asset spot in the Unity asset store outside of the Unity ecosystem? Yes. The short answer is yes. You are buying the digital media rights to that asset, regardless of where you use it, on most of the licensing stuff. Now, technically my VTube backdrop is a Unity program that I made, so even if that's not the case, it's fine, because I can use the argument that I am using a Unity program that I have developed and I have given myself licensing rights to play that program over my VTube if I really felt like getting into the weeds with that. but that also sounds like it'd be a pain in the butt and no one cares. So but as far as I understand it, assets you buy on the Unity asset store are being licensed for your corporation's use or personal use, regardless of whether you use them on the Unity ecosystem. As far as I know, I am not a lawyer, and I don't, but to my understanding, that's not a limitation that needs to be worried about. They're not transferable though, so if you make it and give it to somebody else, then there are questions of licensing that existence. Is the job of a creator to create something for everybody to enjoy, or to create something that many people will enjoy and others will appreciate exists? Well, I definitely don't create something that everybody enjoys. I'm okay with that. I actually got an interesting comment the other day about somebody who didn't enjoy my work. Plus, also as a non-human character, I get a lot of flack from people who don't like that kind of character, which is fine. I don't mind. So I don't think any creator is going to create something for everybody to enjoy. I think that's impossible. I think it's impossible, and it's okay that it's impossible. This is just not even really reasonable. But you want to create something that as many people can enjoy as possible while keeping true to your vision. And this is where we go back to that Skyrim discussion versus Morrowind that we were having earlier with Tulof Bees. Because Skyrim appeals to more people, but it drops that mantle of creator, as Redefined Game Dev says, that the Skyrim is more accessible to more people, but it loses the ideal game existence for the smaller group of people. So some people are more attached to Morrowind because it's more, well, because it's more specific to exactly what that target audience wants. Does that make sense? Because a specific target audience is more in tune with what Morrowind is offering. But as a series, they wanted to make something that appealed to more people. Is that wrong of them? No, of course not. That's what they wanted, and that's their new design focus. But they lost some people, like Tulof, like me in some regards. For the Fallout series, if you look at Fallout 4, they lost me. But they got more people to enjoy, and that's fine. Now, there's also a very cynical line that we could go down in this direction and say, oh, well, what about money? But I don't really feel like going down that line today. We already have a lot of chat threads, and I really like how these chat threads have been linking together, like talking about MMOs and game jams and these development questions kind of have been circling around into each other very nicely. I'm having a good time. I hope you all are having a good time too. I'll go for another 10-15 minutes, but I do want to take a quick moment to say, hey, rate, comment, subscribe. I appreciate you all. Most important thing for me right now is signal boost. I need more people to know that I exist. My biggest fear as a VTuber is that I am somebody's ideal streamer, and they never find me because algorithms. So yeah, if you're enjoying this, I'll do another stream like this in the future. I'll probably do a couple more streams like this in the future about Godot over the course of the game jams. And I am intending on having Tulof on the channel at some point for in the upcoming week or so, or a couple weeks, to talk about game jam experiences. And I will definitely be having Redefined Game Dev on at some point, and I will be discussing with him whether or not I can do judging of the games while streaming, because that would be really fun. That would be kind of cool. At this point, I really just love listening and reading. I can't really talk much on... Oh, that's fine. If you're having fun, if you're just vibing with us, that's great. Julian Lefebvre? I don't know who that is. Oh, no, I do. Okay, yeah. I, as a writer and artist, have a vision of the story I want to tell. But hold on. Sorry. I, as a writer and artist, have a vision, and now I just have to voice act this. I have to make this as pretentious as possible. I mean, no offense by any... I, as a writer and artist, have a vision of the story I want to tell, and I know not all people will enjoy it, but I hope that the people who don't can at least appreciate it. Sorry, I had to do that. That was for me. Sorry, that was for me. Okay. Anyways. I agree with you. I mean, I don't get me wrong. I completely stand that. Like that is a standpoint that I am here for. And that's a big part of how I work and how I GM as well. Like, I do sometimes think of how many followers I would have if I made, like, a lewd femboy VTuber or something, but I'm just not going to do that. Like, that's just not me. That's just not who I want to be on stream. Aw, thank you, Raging Shark and Edward. I'm glad you found me. Yeah, the big number I need to hit... I mean, okay, I have a ways to go, obviously. I have... What am I at now? 170-ish? Yeah, 168. I have a ways to go, but when I hit 1,000 is when names become big. Your name is Cheese? Oh. Gotcha. Hello, Cheese. Fair enough. I did not know that. Thank you for bringing that to my attention. Also, I'm trying to use they, them for everybody I don't know pronouns to, just because that's a good life choice, and I recommend that other people do it. Yeah. So, you know, since we have Redefined Game Dev on the channel right now, I'm going to ask this as well. Are we doing judging live? Yeah, making your own YouTube account is probably a good idea at some point. Bum 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 bum. Bum 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 bum. Ah. Yay. Alright. Where are we on other stuff? Yeah, why not? Sounds good to me. Judge and rate the games as we go? Sure. Yeah, I can probably dedicate a full week to that. You know what? That's my plan. On the week of June 9th, what does that look like? The 9th is a Wednesday. The Game Jam's ending on a Wednesday? Alright. Hold on. Am I off on that? That doesn't seem... Bum ba bum bum. Have either of you judged a large jam before? So, got my live input. So I haven't rated a large game jam before, but I do a lot of events in the anime industry. That is actually my first time really exposing that about myself on the channel, but I actually have a foothold in the anime industry, and I have judged anime music videos, AMVs, on a convention level for some of the largest conventions in North America. So I do have experience for judging larger scale user-submitted content, though not necessarily about Game Jam specifically. And hello, Sikuras. How do you do? So, usually when we do that... Yes, you asked a question that revealed something new. Haha! So, usually what we do for that is we first weed out chaff. We first go in and weed out something that... all the ones that are unacceptable to a certain level of standards. Basically, all the things that don't actually get in the judging section. And then, of the ones that remain, we write out what categories we are going to apply to that. So for anime music videos, we would usually say, okay, this is in the action category. Does it fit in action? Does the pacing go well? Are all the timings and the technicals going extremely well? Then that's more what we focus on. If it's in the humor category, it's do the jokes land? Is this actually funny? Are they just making references, or is the video actually creating its own humor, or is it just using the humor of a song? Like, are they just using a Weird Al song and then rolling Naruto to it, or are they actually using the format of the video to create comedy? And so each category has its own list of what it needs, of what we judge it on. And then throughout each category, we have 5 or 6 subcategories. Usually technical is on all of them, but technical is weighted a bit more heavily on something like action. And... and yeah, we take that information and 1 to 10 rate stuff as we go along, and then we throw out those 1 to 10 ratings because those are always completely useless, and we do comparative ratings. We say, oh, I think this did that better than this one. I think that this worked better than that third video in this category. So we rate the things 1 to 10, throw out the 1 to 10. Every year this happens. We always plan on doing 1 to 10s, and then we end up saying, well, this is a 7. Well, that was a 7, but it was better than the other 7, so we'll call it a 7.5 for now, and then you have like a 7.3, a 7.25, and then like just all the way down the line forever. So it always ends up being more comparative ratios. Oh yeah, dude, you don't even know. Oh yeah, that's very much a thing. And the Linkin Park Naruto, we still get submissions that are Linkin Park Naruto. I swear to heck. I swear to heck, we still get submissions that are that. It's like, why though? Why are you like this? Hi, Vader. So, throughout this week, I need to write up the... What is that? What's that? I wanted to ask whether you found those initial ratings useful. It's not possible, I think. The user's perspective can shift across experience. Right. That's exactly correct. The initial ratings are useful when weeding out chaff. And when... it's not a really good way to describe it, because those are still people's creations that they put a lot of effort into, but some of them just don't hit standards. And when I do the judging on the channel, I will have probably already taken out the games, like the ones that don't open, or the ones where the controls are just not mapped. You know, like that's not a complete thing to submit. You should judge, but yeah, the initial ratings are very useful in that stage, and become less useful as you get into comparing the better ones. So it's mostly like, okay, toss this down as a quick reference, and then which is useful, and then toss it out when it outlives its usefulness. So that's why we keep it up on the initial one. But it always ends up being useless, but it always ends up being useful on the first blow, on the first go around. We're having a good time, Darth. We're vibing. This is just a vibe and chat stream. I was actually initially going to actually do this. So for people who don't know, the hot springs is just my background, is just my my lore, my cave. And I do actually have a hot springs here, and I was actually going to record from the hot springs. Problem is that my laptop that I would have to record on is terrible. I have an old laptop. I mean, it was a fantastic laptop. Yep. It has an NVIDIA GTX 880 in it. That's pretty good, right? It's a bit old. The keyboard is broken, so I have a Bluetooth keyboard. The touchpad occasionally does things. And I was just going to plug in my Snowball mic, because it's a non-condenser that's going to get better audio out there, and use the built-in camera and try to actually do this in the hot springs itself. And you know what? I'm going to try that for the next one. Next time I do a hot spring stream, I'm doing that. I'm absolutely doing that. It's going to be horrible. I love it. It'll be great. But this one was going to be more focused on discussion about game jam, so I wanted to be at my computer directly so I could actually look stuff up, which I have done. I actually have had to look up a few reference materials at various points throughout the stream. I mean, you guys know that. You've heard me. Yeah, calling things out that don't have a chance helps keep the judging process streamlined. And here's the important thing: we did a couple of years we did judging live to get the audience involved in a part of it. But here's the thing: I don't want to slam games. I don't want to slam somebody's creation, and I don't want to do that in public. I'm not gonna. It's not gonna happen. Like, I want to keep a positive, wholesome vibe on this channel. If I'm playing a bad game on this channel, it's because the game either has something interesting to say, or something that's very dynamic and interesting to work on, but is inherently flawed, and I want to do that to highlight the good things. Take up your clothes. Yeah, I know that Twitch just did the whole hot sub, and I'm not gonna lie, that is part of why I named it this, just because that was in the news cycle. But yeah, I am not a lewd tuber, nor will I ever be. But what was I saying? Pun. Oh yeah, I don't want to slam people's creations. If somebody created an AMV or a game jam game or any other effort-based thing, anything, artwork, whatever, and they felt confident enough to submit it to me, I don't want to tear them down, because that's not easy. Like, just emotionally, that's not easy to get through. So I would rather screen and take some of the poorer results out so that I don't have to be like, wow, this is terrible, this is just not good. Because I don't want to do that to the public, at least. I mean, yeah, obviously you have to do that when you're judging in private. Like, you can't get around that. But yeah, I just don't want to do that to someone's creation if I can avoid it. The idea is to encourage people to participate in things. Yeah, exactly. But at the same time, if you're judging, you have to be critical. And I have played games on the channel that are bad. I mean, I have. Not a lot of them, because I don't, usually, but the games I have played, I'm gonna say it, Druidstone is not a very good game. It just has a few gaping flaws in its design. But I still like it, and I still wanted to show it off because I wanted people to hear about it, and because I know that some people will enjoy those aspects of the game design. And I know that the game itself has so many good redeeming things about it that I wanted to showcase it. I wanted to play Druidstone on the channel because there's so much good about it. Even though I don't like the end result. Even though I feel that the game's flaws outweigh some of its benefits sometimes. But I kept a positive light on it the entire stream because, well, A, of course I did, that's what I like doing. B, it deserves it for the features it has that are good and interesting. And this ties in, of course, to the asset flip discussion we were having before. If it does something unique and it's not an asset flip. I'm not accusing it of asset. Don't twist my words. But the game has, I want to highlight what it does well, and with the concepts that it has there. You see what I'm saying? Or Gyromancer. I did a Gyromancer stream. Gyromancer got plastered on reviews. I think it still is listed as... Wait, let me see. Yeah. Gyromancer is 66% positive. That's a mixed rating, and that's for a Square Enix PopCap game. That's a Square Enix game with a 66% with a 44% negative review count. That's absurd, right? Like that counts as a bad game. Like that's a D. But it does so many things that are interesting. It does so many things well that I want to highlight it and showcase the neat ideas it has, because I think it's an underrated gem. I think the Gyromancer is actually pretty fun, and that the PopCap community, the casual gaming community, tossed it aside because it looks like it's too deep. It looks like it has too many concepts going on. And the Square Enix Final Fantasy community tossed it away because it's a match 3 puzzle game. That's not the kind of game I play. I'm a hardcore gamer. As if that meant anything. So, yeah, when I play games that are not quote-unquote good, then it's because I want to showcase what makes it, what good parts it has. Does that make sense? Yeah. How does one get an animated avatar like yours? Commission it. I commissioned this from Remechan, Remexin on Twitter. If you can go on Skeb, Skeb is probably the best place to find one, or Fiverr. And yeah, there is a lot that goes into it. It's mocap. I mean, it's still acting. I mean, you are effectively doing motion capture acting on camera. But you can find, if you want to get an avatar that's like mine, you need to have it commissioned because it's a very specific process. Cheers, Mithy. Let's see. Uh, yeah, there's a lot that goes into it, so I recommend commissioning somebody who already knows how to make it. But yeah, you can make it yourself if you follow some tutorials online. But to be blunt, if you're asking me instead of Googling tutorials, you might be better off commissioning. I use PRPR Live for the for my capture because PRPR Live lets me do cool things like this, so I can actually have lighting. I did this during the when I'm in a 3D game, I usually do this just so the lighting is a little bit more dynamic and stylish. I did this for Bloodborne because it fit the backgrounds and the motif and looked really nice and scary. So these options here are why I use PRPR Live. But there's a lot of other good software out there. VTube Studio is excellent. And there's another one out there. I forget it. The post-scarcity space that games represent is there's more to gain from exploring what's interesting about a thing than what's not interesting about it. Exactly. And if I ever play a bad game, it's because I want to show what's good about it. And I'll focus on that. And I know that there's a lot of people who enjoy teardown videos, I guess that's how I describe them. People, dramatic lighting, Jade. There's people who enjoy videos that are about making fun of something or being angry about it, rage videos, nostalgia critics style stuff. And that's just not me. I want to make a nice, wholesome, welcoming atmosphere. I want to make a happy channel that people go to vibe with and just chill and have a good time. So if I'm not going to, tear things apart like that. Hello, King. Let's see. Let me quick discuss what's going on next week. So, yeah, I'm going to do a couple more chat streams like this. I'm going to be doing one, probably not for a little bit though. I'll probably wait until things are a little bit more running. I am going to invite Tuloff onto the, I'm going to invite Cheese onto the channel so that they can, and that'll be technically me playing Hive Time with them commentating and discussing, but it's mostly going to be me talking about their experiences in Godot and their experiences on things, on game jams, because they have a lot of game jam experience that I think is definitely good to highlight. And after we finish up the Lion Song, I'm going to try to refocus on more specific games. I'm going to try to keep 2 narrative games on the channel and focus on making them the center of attention. I'm still doing the Resident Evil with Yuki, who is an absolute delight to work with. And I'm still going to be completing Hat in Time, but I want to do a little bit less of the variety streamer stuff because, well, algorithm mostly. I want to make myself a little bit more specific about the games I play, because I like playing the narrative games. I like playing a long-form narrative game that I work through, but honestly, I'm streaming 5 days a week, and yeah, I'll probably only have one main game that I keep on going back to every Wednesday and Saturday. Thursday is going to stay as Epic Thursday, where I play whatever game is free on the Epic Game Store until that stops being a good idea, basically. That I like that because it gives me a lot of new experiences. It gives me a new variety of things to play every week. But it also is a hit and miss bag because I don't know what the games are going to be going in, and I'm completely at the mercy of the Epic Store's mood. Which, oh yeah, the one for last week was NBA 2K21. I I'm glad I was out of town for that one. Like, genuinely, I'm just legitimately glad I didn't have to play that on the channel. It sounds terrible, but I don't like sports games. I just don't sport. I would have played it. I mean, if I was in town this week, I would be playing 2K21. I would have played that on. I would have played that on Thursday. Alas, we shall not know. We shall not see that on the channel for now. Putting yourself in a niche. See, I kind of have a niche. I'm just not using it to my full advantage. Is what's happening right now. My niche is playing narrative games. I mean, I have like 30 videos in my Bloodborne series. I did all of Soma start to finish. My niche on this channel is and always has been playing a narrative game and exploring the lore and what goes into it during the playthrough. And I'm going to continue doing that. That's my niche. But the thing is, I would need to do that more. Like, I should be doing 2 games twice a week, and then have one that's something else. And recently I've been doing more diversity of stuff, which is harder on the algorithm, because, well, how can I put this? Because it's harder to start a long-term stream while I'm still trying to get new followers. Like, there's a natural degradation where somebody who is watching Bloodborne is more likely to watch Bloodborne Episode 2, but somebody who comes in on Bloodborne Episode 14 might not click on the video because they don't want to come into something that's already there. Does that make sense? So, like, I want to go to my niche. I want my niche to be that narrative game, and that's been working really well for me. It really has. And I'm going to be doing more of that, absolutely. But having these one-offs do get new people in, and I find gems that I do want to continue. Like, I did Vermintide. I'm not going to do Vermintide again. That's fine. It was a good time. I tried it. I put it down. I walk away. Hand of Fate. I did Hand of Fate. I'm not going to do Hand of Fate again. But I experimented with it to find it. I did Ghost. I did Ghost 1.0. I'm absolutely going to do more Ghost 1.0 because I really enjoyed it. And I didn't know that I was going to enjoy it, and I didn't expect to enjoy it. I genuinely didn't expect to enjoy it. I thought it was just going to be a cute little platformer that would fill a hole at my schedule. So playing more of a variety of games gives me more flexibility and gives me more opportunities. But playing a one-game narrative game to completion is better for the algorithm and is more what I want to accomplish on the channel. I want my channel's accomplishments to be... Oh, you worked on Hand of Fate? Oh, cool. I want my accomplishment, I want my channel to be about that narrative experience that goes into it. So, like, I have a niche. I just need to niche my niche better. I just need to figure out a good way to balance my desire to have new experiences and to share new things on the channel, and my desire to lock myself into a game and play it to completion. So we're gonna be finishing Lion Song, because Lion Song was phenomenal, but I should be able to finish that all on Wednesday. Yeah. Monday is Resident Evil with Yuki, and I don't know what we'll do when we finish that, because we both like working with each other. We might just go into another Resident Evil game or find something else to play. I don't know. I'll have to see what her desires are. But I'm gonna keep Epic Thursday as a series, just because as a series it's given me a lot to work with. It's given me a lot of new experiences. And then the next big series on the channel that I'm going to be continuing are going to be Ghost 1.0 and Hat in Time for now. Ghost 1.0 and Hat in Time are the 2 games that I'm going to be playing to completion next. And then after that is probably going to be Sniper Ghost Warrior and Horizon Zero Dawn. But I mean, if somebody requests something on Twitter, I'll definitely jump into it. My Superliminal stream was a ton of fun, and I loved it, and it was an wonderful experience. And I wouldn't have picked it up if someone didn't recommend it. So if somebody has a game they want to recommend that if they think would either be good for my style or good for the, yeah, it'd be, well, I guess, yeah, that would be good for my style. Poke me on Twitter or email. I think I have a publisher link in my channel description. And the other thing I do try to do collabs. I do try to do collabs whenever they're available. Like, I mean, the long-term thing with Yuki for Resident Evil isn't exactly a collab anymore. It's more of a a partnership in just working on that game. But like, I try and do collabs with other VTubers as a way of growing my channel, as a way of getting my name out there, and because they're all cool people. Sunless, the voice acting stream with Fenry on Sunless Sea, Monster Hunter with Tori, all good times, all good times. The League of Legends stream with Cirrus, where I was going to donate for every time I lost my cool to Doctors Without Borders during League of Legends, and I just ended up being a calm elemental throughout the entire time. Someone told me that I should try Getting Over It with what is it called? Getting Over It with Brian Fody? Is that sound right? Bennett Foddy. Yeah, Getting Over It with Bennett Foddy. But like, people want VTubers to play that because they want them to rage. And if I play that, I guarantee you that I'm just going to be calm and vibing. If I play Getting Over It, everybody's like, oh, okay, we're just going to be... I probably will at some point. But yeah. Hit me up on Twitter or email if you want me to play a specific game. I'm going to try to focus more on longer form narrative content and the game and Godot game stuff, because I am a part of the Godot game jam, and I am loving it. It's doing great. I actually dropped one swear at the end of the stream just so that I had to donate something. That'll be the only time I have any swears on my entire archive. If you can find that one, go ahead and clip it, because that's the only time I swear is at the end of that stream. I dropped one after the game, just so that just to make it happen. Oh yeah, you can poke me about a collab sometime. I mean, I'm fine with. I'd be happy to. And I think that about does it for our stream today, though. This was a good discussion. We jumped from game jams into game development, into VR and MMO development, back into game jams, back into modern Bethesda titles and the development philosophy that it takes to create a modern Bethesda game, back into the philosophy of classic game design, back into over into expectations of games with a discussion on with a discussion about System Shock 2 and BioShock and how that relates to everything else, and then rounding it out here with a little bit of channel discussion and talking about various game dev ecosystems. And you know what? It all flowed together. I could have scripted this entire stream and it wouldn't have flowed as well. And I want to thank you all for joining me. This was a lot of fun. I will be around Monday with Yuki, and then I'll be going into all the other stuff, and I will poke you cheese about when we can do that. I write my schedules on Sunday, so I will poke you about when we want to schedule that out. And you know what? I'm just gonna hit the button now because why not? And this is also my post roll. Oh wait, this is also my post roll, which is a separate Unity creation of mine that does use the assets from the store with a parallax scroll and some more Kurigama music. I will fade out now and leave this run because for a 2-minute post roll, but I just wanted to mention that since we were discussing it on the earlier in the stream. Thank you all. It has been a pleasure talking with you, and I hope you have a wonderful evening. Cheers.